Sorry. Part 2, reading without the kids. Wow. Lived in Moscow with a French doctor by the name who was suddenly all the rage. He was very tall and handsome. He had neither manners of true Frenchmen, and all Moscow had downed him as a very nice, accomplished physician. He was received in the very best houses, not merely as a doctor, but as an equal. Old Principal Konski had always poured so on medicine, but in recent days he had took Mademoiselle Bourrienne's advice and allowed the doctor to see him, gradually getting used to his visits. Anywhere else. Boris latched onto his previous week when he had heard a Rupshkin turn around an invitation from the commander-in-chief of Moscow, who had invited him on dinner. St. Nicholas pays my devotion. The old general but put in odd remarks now and then. Prince Nikolai, presented like a judge receiving a submission, was nothing more than an occasional grunt or the briefest of the words to indicate that he was taking stock of the facts laid before him. The tone of the conversation was based on assumption that no one approved of what as being done in the political world. Events were described and early confirmed the idea of everything going on from bad to worse. But in every count, the critical discourse, it was remarkable how each speaker held back or was held back by someone else. If he had got anywhere near by the borderline with the criticism, might have touched on the Tsar himself. I threw him out of the house today. He came and they let him in, even though I asked for no one to be admitted, said the old prince, glaring across at his daughter. And he went through the whole of his conversation with the French doctor and his reasons for believing one's raised of an objection. After the main course of champagne was reserved, the guest rose to congratulate the old prince. Princess Maria too went round to him. He treated her too like a cold, spiteful glare, and altered her clean-shaven, wrinkled neck. There was a look on his face that said everything. Their conversation that morning was not been forgiven. His decision still stood that, and only the presence of visitors prevented him from talking about it now. When they proceeded to the drawing room for the coffee, the old man sat down together. Prince Nikolai got more excited and began to expound his ideas on the impending war. He said that our wars against Bonaparte would always be lost, while ever he would on sneaking alliances with the German in meddling his European affairs that he couldn't get out of because of the Peace of Tilsit. We have no business fighting for or against Austria. He went on. Our political interests are to east, and as far as Napoleon is concerned, all we need is a well-armed force. The fortier and a strong policy, and he won't dare across the Russian frontier again, as he did in 1807. But how are we ever going to be able to fight the French, Prince? Said Count Robskin. How can we take arms against our teachers and our idols? Look at the young men. Into his feet with usual accuracy, and extending a hand to the prince. Goodbye, my dear fellow. Music to my ears. What a man. Always worth listening to, said the old prince, holding on to the hand and offering his cheek. The older rose when Rumskin did, sitting there in the drawing room, listening to the old men's chatter and tattle-tatter. Prince Maria couldn't understand a word of what she was hearing. The only thing she could think about was whether or not all the guests were aware of her father's hostility towards her. She hadn't even noticed Trubetskoy now on his third visit to her house. There had been particularly attentive and amiable towards her all dinner. Prince Maria turned to Pierre with a faraway, encouraging look in her eyes, he being the last to go. After the prince he had departed, leaving them alone in the drawing room. He had come over to her, hat in hand, a smiling face. "Can I stay on it a bit?" he said, depositing his great bulk into a low chair alongside Princess Maria. "Please do," she said, but her eyes asked him. Did you notice? Pierre was in a happy after-dinner mood. He looked straight ahead and smiled a sweet smile. "Haven't you known that the young man very long ago, Princess?" he said. "Which one, Trubetskoy? Not very long. Do you like him?" "Yes, he's a very young man. Why do you ask?" said Princess Maria, still thinking of her conversation that morning with her father. "Because in my experience, when a young man comes from Petersburg to Moscow on leave, it's usually the object of marrying hairless." "Is it your experience?" said Princess Maria. "Oh, yes," Pierre went on with a smile. Sitting there in the drawing room, listening to the old men chatter and tattle-tatter. Princess Maria couldn't understand a word of what she was hearing. The only thing that she could think about was whether or not all the guests were aware of her father's hostility towards her. She hadn't even noticed that Hibiscus, now on his third visit to their house, had particularly attentive and now amiable towards her all dinner. Princess Maria turned to Prince Pierre with a faraway, encouraging look in her eyes. He had been ago. The prince, the posing skulk. Is it your experience? Oh, yes, Pierre went on with a smile, and that young man is carrying on in with such a way that wherever there are healthy, hairless, that's where he is. I can read him like a book. At the moment, he's working whether to mount an assault on you or Mademoiselle Julie Corrigan. He's paying her a lot of attention. Does he go there? Eagle poo. God. Back toilet. Yes, very often. And do you know the latest way of courting a woman? Said Pierre, beaming pleasantly and obviously enjoying that joyful mood of ironic banter for which he had reproached himself so many times in his diary. No, said Princess Maria. Well, nowadays, in order to please the girls in Moscow, you have to be melodic. He's very melodic, just how the Mademoiselle Corrigan, said Pierre. Is he really? Said Princess Maria, staring into Pierre's kindly face. She was thinking, as I could just confide in somebody and tell them how I feel, and Pierre, the one to confide him. He's so kind and generous. I feel better. He would tell me what to do. Would you ever marry him? Asked Pierre. Oh, heavens count. There are times when I'd marry anybody. Oh, is it so hard when you love someone close to you and you feel? She went on in a tremendous voice. But the other people I don't forget what's wrong with me today. Please don't take any notice. Forget what I've said. Does he go there? Yes, very often. And how do you know the latest way of courting a woman? Said Pierre, beaming breezily and obviously enjoying that joyful mood of ironic banter for which he had reproached himself so many times in his diary. No, said Princess Maria. Well, nowadays, in order to please the girls in Moscow, you have to be meanololic. He's very meanololic. Just with Mademoiselle Kuragin, said Pierre. Is he really? Said Princess Maria, staring into Pierre's kindly face, but constantly preoccupied with her own troubles. I feel a bit better, she was thinking, if I could just confide in somebody and tell them how I feel. And Pierre, the one to confide him. He's so kind and generous. I think I'd feel better. He would tell me what to do. Oh, would you ever marry him? Asked Pierre. Oh, heavens count. There's times when I'd married anybody. Does he go there? Yes, very often. And how do you know? The latest way of countering a woman, said Pierre, beaming breezily and obviously enjoying that joyful mood of ironical banter for which she had reproached himself so many times in his diary. No, said Princess Maria. Well, nowadays, in order to please the girls in Moscow, you have to be meanololic. He's very meanololic, just how Mademoiselle Kuragin, said Pierre. Is he really? Said Princess Maria, still staring into Pierre's kindly face, but constantly preoccupied with her own troubles. I feel a bit better, she was thinking, if I could just confide in somebody and tell them how I feel. And Pierre's was the one to confide in. He's so kind and generous. I feel better. He would tell me what to do. Would you ever marry him? Asked Pierre. Oh, heavens count. There are times when I marry anybody, Princess Maria said with her tears in her voice, much to her own surprise. Oh, it's so hard when you love somebody close and you feel, she went on in a tremendous voice. You can't do anything for him that won't cause any trouble, and you know you can't do anything about it. There's only one thing to do, go away. But where can I go? What's wrong? What happened, Princess? But Princess Maria, instead of going on to explanations, bursted into tears. I don't know what's wrong with me today. Please don't take any notice. Forget what I said. Pierre's breezy attitude was gone. He questioned the princess anxiously, began begging her to a clean breath of it and tell him that her troubles, but just kept on repeating the same things. She wanted to him and to forget what she had said and couldn't remember what she had said, and the only worry she had was the one he knew about, Princess Andre marriage, with which he looked like a setting father against son. Have you ever heard anything about the Rostovs? She asked, changing the subject. I believe that they're due to her soon, and I'm expecting Prince Andre. I should give them like them to her first meeting here. And now he does look on things now, asked Pierre, meaning the old Princess Maria looked at any old things now. haven't you?" asked Princess Maria. "Give me your honest opinion. Band on heart, what sort of girl